quick video on a problem from WebAssign in this case. First thing we need to do, word problem. Anytime you've got a word problem, you have to come up with your own variables. It's always helpful to go ahead and look at what we're being asked for. In this case, we're being asked for how many spots to purchase in each show to maximize exposure. So the number of spots is going to be our final answer. That's X and Y. So go ahead and label those here. You can label them whatever you'd like. I always stick with X and Y. Now we need to try to decipher the rest of the information in the problem into terms of X and Y, usually with equations. Okay, oftentimes these big numbers in the problem are going to be the equals, if you will. So here we've got at least 30. Okay. So it's going to be a minimum of 30, or whatever it's going to be in terms of X and Y is greater than or equal to 30. So what are we looking at here? Your marketing services has been hired to promote this by buying at least 30 spots total during those two shows. So X plus Y needs to be greater than or equal to 30. You've been quoted a price of $2,000 per spot Family Guy, $3,000 on American Dad, and advertising budget is $70,000. So we need $2,000 per spot for Family Guy, $3,000 per spot for American Dad. And this has to be less than or equal to our total budget of $70K. Lastly, the company would like at least 75% of the total number of spots to appear on Family Guy. Okay, so 75% of the total number of spots, that's X plus Y times 0.75. So we need at least this amount. Here we had at least 30, and 30 was less than this number, so at least this amount has to be less than or equal to total number of spots need to be on Family Guy. So Family Guy was total number of spots X, so X plus Y times 0.75 must be less than or equal to X. So we've got our equations here. And we want to maximize exposure. Exposure is number of ads times number of viewers. We had viewers up here at the top. 1.3 million viewers and 0.9 million viewers. So exposure is going to equal our number of ads, so X times the exposure, or the number of viewers for Family Guy, which is 1.3 million, plus number of ads for American Dad times its exposure of 0.9 million. So this is what we want to try to maximize, is the exposure relative to these constraints. Because we've got a problem that's asking us to maximize or minimize something, optimize something, this is going to be linear programming, so we need to go ahead and graph this. First step, though, just coming up with the trying to get the problem data in terms of those equations. And once we've got equations, then we can graph those usually fairly simply. Sometimes it require a little bit more work with a calculator. Get my calculator out here. I'm going to label each of these equations 1, 2, and 3 for graphing purposes. So first off, go ahead and come down here. Equation 1 will graph y greater than or equal to 30 minus x. Equation 2 will graph y less than or equal to 23 1/3 minus 2/3 x. And for the last one, simplifying this, we'll end up dividing by 0.75 and get 4/3 x. So kind of an intermediate step here. We get x plus y less than or equal to 4/3 x after dividing by 3/4. And getting y by itself means I move that x to the other side, so we have y less than or equal to 4/3 minus x, so that's less than or equal to 1/3 x. So these are the three equations that we're going to graph. The graph doesn't have to be super precise. The smallest number of spots that we're going to get for each is 0. So we can stay in this first quadrant of the plane. Now I've got, looks like the largest y value is 30. So that's my y-intercept. We'll come down here at x equals -1. It's going to cross here at 30. This is equation 1. Equation 1 will be shaded. Let's see, if we plug in 0, 0, 0 greater than or equal to 30, it's not true. So this is going to be shaded above. Then we've got 23 1/3, so that's right in here. And it's going to decrease at -2/3 rate. So we can find the x-intercept, which is where y equals 0 here. So 0 equals 23 1/3 minus 2/3 x. So we move the 2/3 to the other side and multiply by, well, let's just do it step by step. This is 23 1/3 is 70/3. So if we multiply by 3/2 on both sides, I get x is equal to 35. So bring this on out here to 35. And that's where equation 2 is going to pass through. And with equation 2, if we plug in 0, 0, 0 is less than or equal to 0 less than or equal to 23 1/3. So we'll shade below this line. So right now, this little sliver is where we're assuming the answer will be, somewhere in there. We just need to plot this last curve. Y is less than or equal to 1/3 x. So 1/3 is going to go up fairly slowly through the origin, something like this. Don't really care exactly where right now, but this is our third equation. Okay. So now we've cut this. Well, and then 0 is less than or equal to 0. That doesn't help us. So if we plug in something like 1, 0 here, 0 is less than or equal to 1/3. That's true, so we're shading down. And indeed, this portion is the portion that we're looking for. So the last thing we need to do is come up with the vertices for this portion. So we need to figure out what this number is for this Cartesian point. This one, these two we should already have.